If you're intimidated to get started sewing, I'm going to share some of the patterns that I very first made when I started on my sewing journey. So I have now been sewing for about 1.5 years. So if you're intimidated, I will always recommend trying to take a local class, but there are so many YouTube videos to get started. Honestly, I feel like the biggest hurdle is learning to thread a machine, trying to figure out what machine you want. And those are kind of maybe how to put a needle in a machine, but for the most part, everything you can kind of learn as you go. Patterns are pretty intuitive and you start to learn more the more that you do. But in this video, I'm going to break down the first few apparel patterns and bag pattern that I sewed and some of the brands I might recommend for a beginner sewer. If you've seen my previous video, I talked a little bit about how I got started sewing. So I took a few sewing classes up in Boulder, Colorado at a store called Sobo. So if you're local to Denver or you're local to Boulder or the general areas, that is a great place that offers great classes for beginners. And I really wanted to join this make your own bag class. Now I was looking at the date on the make your own bag class and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to take the 101 class, 201 class, and 301 class. Also, I can take this bag making class. So my first big project was actually a bag. Now, this bag is one that I've used at a lot of music festivals, so it has taken a beating and it is in need of repair, and I haven't repaired it yet. It broke maybe about a month ago, but this is my very first project. So, or first big project, I could say. This is the Haralson Bag by Noodlehead Pattern Company. I love her patterns. They are super clear and she has video instructions for a lot of her patterns. So if you're new to pattern making or sewing in general, it's so clear. You can follow the written instructions and you can start to learn the terminology as you're watching her videos and trying to figure out what to do. So like I said, this bag took a beating. So this little hang loop here, it did fall out of the bag, so I am going to have to repair that, but I'll walk you through the bag just in general, so if you can forget that it's broken right now. It is made out of a corduroy with this pink pleather accent piece, and I am really into EDM, so I added this LS Dream patch here and here. So I used gunmetal hardware, and then I lined it with a Tula Pink quilting cotton, and Tula Pink I really like because she has some neon patterns. I'm not a big quilter, but I do like using her patterns for linings. And then I have cats on the inside of this one. I used a pink zipper. This might also be Tula Pink. It's a very fluorescent green type color, and I did a slider on it. And of course I use this for music festivals. So I happen to have a Grizz pin from 7 Stars last year. And I also have this nice Daily Bread cloud that someone gave to me at a music festival. So that's what's currently on this bag. And it was kind of my first big project. I learned a ton. So again, if you watched my previous video, you know that I'm a huge advocate for do projects that help you learn things. So I learned so much through my first bag that I became very confident in my sewing skills very quickly. Now, if you're not interested in bags, let's start talking about some apparel patterns. So my first apparel piece, I'm actually not quite sure if it was this or another skirt, but I did a skirt first. Skirts and pajama pants are typically pretty good places to get started with apparel sewing. So this is the Estuary skirt by Liberated. I made it in a mini version, so I actually shortened it a lot. So the length is a midi length or a maxi length, and I was like, I'm gonna make this cute summer skirt, and it's in a Katie Courtman cotton lawn, I think is the fabric. So what did I learn in this project? Well, this project has an elasticized back, so I learned elastic, and if we look at it, we actually sew the elastic in here, so you have to kind of stretch it out and sew it. So I learned how to do this elastic piece. I learned how to do a waistband. So we have this waistband that's a little bit thicker because we use interfacing. And then I learned buttons and buttonholes. So there's a button placket in the front. You can make a faux button front. This is real, so they really do button and unbutton. So I learned how to do buttonholes and I learned how to do buttons with this skirt. And it was one of my first projects. Very cute. I plan on wearing it at Jazz in the Park this summer. Now, this is the other project where I actually can't remember whether this was my first project or my second project, but I made the Mave skirt by True Bias, and it has also an elastic waist. I think this might have been my first skirt because I definitely made some mistakes in this waistband. But I do wear this skirt pretty frequently. There's still some loose threads on here that I haven't cut off, but that is the nature of being a sewer, I think. And it has a drawstring at the waist as well. And it has tiers, so I learned how to do some gathering here, and it's a maxi length. I actually didn't ever hem this, but it is a jersey fabric, so it's not fraying, so I don't feel bad about not hemming it. Now, this fabric, so when I was learning to sew, I was hesitant about buying new expensive fabric. I bought like 3 yards of this fabric, or 2.5, or whatever it was. I bought it at a creative reuse center for a grand total of about $3. Now, this pattern was not necessarily designed for jersey fabric, but it didn't require a lot of modification. So even though it's stretchy, it did not require a ton of modification to the pattern because it doesn't really change the fit. Now, I also learned how to do pockets on this. So I actually have pockets on the Estuary skirt too, but I did pockets, so I was practicing pockets. And I'm still so happy with how this skirt turned out. It's like one of my favorite things in my closet. But this is a great beginner pattern that I recommend to a lot of people who are getting started sewing. So I actually used to work at a sewing store. And when I worked there and people were like, I don't know what garment to sew first, this was one of the patterns I would always recommend because it was so easy. After I cut the pieces, I think I did the whole project beginning to end in about 2 hours. Another project that I always recommend to beginners is the Aster top by True Bias. I have made this top like 4 times now. I've adjusted it a little bit for a full bust adjustment, but I love this top. I actually might make another adjustment the next time I make this pattern. I think I want to bring the straps in a little bit, but I'm a sucker for a matching top, or matching set. So I also made it in the Katie Courtman cotton, and this is the matching top. It's like a crop top. I wear it with the skirt, and it also has buttons in the back. Where are the buttons? There they are, buttons in the back. I did make a mistake on this, but you can't see and you can't tell. But this is a great pattern. I've made this in a few linens, and I really like making it in like a solid linen and then actually having statement buttons in the back. So I will sometimes buy vintage buttons for this. Now, like I said, I kind of made a mistake on it, and the buttonhole is getting like a little bit loose. So one of the things I think I might do is, because I can fit this over my head without taking off the buttons, I actually might just sew this placket closed, because the buttons are really more for show than they are for function, at least the way it fits on me. Okay, one of my other first garments that I made is the ST side tie top. So I have made this top also about 3 or 4 times. And it's great because I have been able to use a lot of fabric remnants and scraps. So if you ever are looking for remnants in a fabric store, this is a great use of those. So like I said, I've made this a couple times. It also has darts at the bust. So does the Aster top. So I learned how to do darts at the bust. And this one is fully lined. It uses the burrito method. So that was one of the things I learned as a part of one of the sewing classes, but that was a skill I learned in making this top. I love this top. I love a crop top for summer, like especially like a statement top in a fun color with like some baggy pants or like low-rise jeans or even high-rise jeans. Like, I don't know. I just think they're so cute and so fun. And so this is one of the other tops that I get compliments on often, even in the other patterns I've made it in. And so I'm always recommending this pattern to people. Now, I do have lots of other pattern recommendations for beginners that I am happy to share with you, but these are the first 5 or so patterns that I started with. So I know that they're good for beginners because I was a beginner when I did these patterns. Now, generally, if I were to recommend patterns to a beginner, I love Friday Pattern Company, I love True Bias, and I love Noodlehead patterns. They all have great sew-alongs, which I feel like when you're learning how to do a pattern for the first time and you haven't necessarily seen all the sewing terminology before, seeing it written in the pattern and then seeing it in a video or a sew along can be very helpful to helping you learn how to read patterns better. So those are some of the brands I recommend, some of the patterns I recommend. Happy to share more that I've made, but those are some ones that I can definitely stand behind and I definitely advocate for beginner sewers. Good luck on your sewing journey and let me know if you have any other questions.